Markets are starting to question themselves, the bloggers exposing our blisters, just the everyday words of everyday people, shifting the tone of televised speeches. When we look beyond our next meal, our next post, the everyday choices of everyday people are facing the storms and curing diseases.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of Comic Fridays. This show will feature comic news, reviews and tips on how to make your own comics. We'll be looking at the whole spectrum of the comics world, from the big American publishers to manga and small press comics, right along to webcomics big and small. Today we're going to start with a quick guide to drawing cartoon faces. There are many cartoon styles, as with all aspects of art, but here we are going for clean, bold lines to create a Western cartoon appearance. We start by drawing a circle, then sketching a quick crosshair on it, taking care to curve the lines we draw in order to give the circle the appearance of a sphere. The vertical line depicts the middle of the face, while the horizontal line is where the eyes will be. Note that because this is a cartoon face, some features will be exaggerated, which is how we can have a line almost in the middle of the sphere and still use it for eyes. Start by drawing in some indication of the expression you want the character to have. Here I'm sketching arched eyebrows because the character will be a little surprised. I can then draw wide eyes underneath the eyebrows, sketch in a nose, any shape of nose will do, it's your character after all, and next draw the mouth. Try to avoid simply drawing a basic C-shaped mouth because we've all seen those before and they are practically expressionless. If you absolutely must use a C mouth, try giving that C a slight upward or downward slant at the closed end to give the face a little bit more expression. Next comes the hair. You don't have to draw every strand of hair, in fact less is often more. A few lines and curves will be enough to give your character a fun hairstyle without the need to spend ages worrying about the placement of strands. Ears are relatively simple. Draw a circle with one open side facing forward. Draw a curve inside the circle and bisect that curve with another curve to form the shape of the ear. The ear should not be higher on the face than the eyebrow level and should curve no lower than the bottom of the nose. Now decide on the shape of the face by drawing a curve from the bottom of the outermost eye down to the chin tip. Draw another curve from below the ear and around to meet the first curve at the chin. To finish your cartoon face off, you need to highlight the important lines in ink. This will allow you to erase the pencil lines once the ink is dry, which will leave you with a clean and uncluttered cartoon face. Keep your hand steady while inking to avoid any smudges or accidental extra lines, and don't try to erase the pencil marks for at least half an hour, possibly more. Okay, turning to news, I think we could all have seen this coming. IGN's Star Trek Doctor Who crossover has sold out before it even hits the high street. The first printing of close to 23,000 copies just wasn't enough to satiate the combined appetites of two of the world's largest fandoms. IDW are printing an extra 6,000 copies though, so if you want one and you missed out first time around, chances are you'll be able to get your mitts on a second printing copy when they land on the 20th of June. In the UK, the Daily Mail newspaper has decided that Batman will be coming out as gay, or possibly Aquaman. Why this is news is anyone's guess, but the timing is unfortunate since it is taking attention away from the wedding of an actual gay superhero, Marvel's North Star. Today is the opening day of the MCM Expo in London, where comic artists from across the board can be found melting in the highly un-British summer sun. The expo continues until 5 PM on Sunday, so if you're in the London area, head along and say hi. Continuing with convention news, a Canadian artist found that he couldn't enter the US without a work permit. Artist Craig Wilson was turned back by the US Border Protection Agency and so prevented from attending Phoenix Comic Con due to a lack of work permit. That's something to note for any non-American comic people thinking of attending conventions in America in the future. Get your permits sorted out well in advance and save yourself a lot of hassle at immigration. Finally, if you can speak Japanese, there's a job you might be interested in. Random House is looking for a new editor for the titles from Kodansha that it distributes in the US, including my personal favourite, Ghost in the Shell. There's a link in the information bar below if you're interested in applying. That's all the news we have time for this week. Let's take a look at some comics. First up we have issue 1785 of 2000 AD, which has a wonderful punk art vibe to it thanks to the fantastic artwork of James McKay on the sci-fi dinosaur epic Flesh, which ends this issue, and the ever-fantastic Carlos Esquerra on the return of Durham Red. I have to admit I still hate Darren Red's costume, and I'm going to continue to insist that form-fitting scale mail armour is going to do nothing but chafe. But she has been wearing that costume for about 20 years now, so I don't think they're going to take my word for it. Pat Mills continues on top form with his writing of Flesh, and it's good to see Alan Grant back on Darren Red. Although I've been loving John Wagner's writing in the Strontium Dog universe, Grant really does know his SD stuff, and it's good to see another take on those characters. Judge Dredd concluded a 20-part build-up story last week, leading into Day of Chaos, which is looking like it's going to be a new classic, but nevertheless, after 20 weeks of utter mayhem in Mega City 1, it is nice to see this week that things have slowed down a little, even if it is just partly for a tea break where Dredd goes to see his niece. Still a very enjoyable piece by Wagner with excellent artwork to match, so thumbs up for that one. I do like to see the occasional offbeat episode of Judge Dredd because it's a very good way of showing Dredd as a person rather than as a person who shoots people a lot. 2000 AD Prog 1785 will be released in shops on Wednesday here in the UK and on the 13th of June for the American market. If digital's your thing, you can pick up a copy from 2000adonline.com from Friday, and there's a link to it in the info bar below, just in case you need it. Moving over to the web, Jade Sarson's Café Suada is a comic that flows incredibly well. When I first read through it, I was amazed at how quickly I got through the 61 pages currently available on her website. The writing is clever, and there's nothing here that feels tacked on to fill space. All our characters have strong personalities, and I love the weird pets they have, especially Rikyu, the duck with an attitude problem. The artwork is very much a manga style, but I can't help feeling there's a lot of French influence here too. Perhaps it's the tea shop setting, or maybe it's the wonderful use of space and crowd scenes, but there's definitely something French in there. The overall effect is to produce a fantastic looking comic which combines with the excellent writing to produce something that you really should not miss. You can find Café Suada at cafesuada.smackjeeves.com, and if you can't spell that, there's a link to it in the info bar below. Finally, we come to Steph Marcinowski's Sarah Zero. This is the comic that defies a lot of the standard requirements for a webcomic, being that it embraces the infinite canvas in a way that actually works, and it forsakes the usual panel layouts in order to present something that both looks and feels dynamic. I've heard some people call the look of Sarah Zero an art student's orgasm or an explosion in a design factory. Both of these descriptions give you a decent idea about how the comic works. It's got a lot of style to it, but that's a good thing here. It looks great, it flows in an interesting way, and the overall effect is just wow. The writing is top-notch, very slick and very stylish. Expect lots of pop culture references and an impressive way of laying the lettering out. The script is integrated into the comic in many ways, rather than being something that's laid on top in speech bubbles like with most other comics. Overall, this is a mightily impressive comic, but with over 700 pages, many of them huge, don't expect to read it in one sitting. This is something you'll have to come back to a few times, but I think you'll enjoy doing just that. Sarah Zero can be found at sarahzero.com, and as always, there's a link in the info bar below. Well, that's all we've got time for this week. I've been Zoe Kirk-Robinson, you've been watching Comic Fridays. Don't forget to click a like button if you like what you've seen, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.